The studio lights came on over the View set, bright and cheerful as always. Joy Behar leaned forward in her chair, smiling across at her fellow hosts. Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, Sunny Hostin, and their guest, Meghan McCain. Everyone looked composed. No tension, just familiar TV warmth. The audience applauded politely as the show began. Joy spoke first, her voice steady. Today we're joined by Meghan McCain to discuss her recent critique of Democratic messaging and whether it's helping or hurting public trust in government. Welcome back, Meghan. Meghan returned the greeting with calm politeness. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. The conversation began gently. Whoopi asked about Meghan's current writing and her advocacy work. Meghan answered kindly, speaking of her goals for civic engagement and civil discourse. The audience reacted with light chuckles and nodding agreement. Sarah asked about the changes in modern conservatism. Meghan responded thoughtfully. They spoke about personal responsibility, open dialogue, and the idea that it's okay to challenge your own side when necessary. At first, the tone remained friendly and respectful. Each host asked questions. Meghan let them lead and answered measuredly. This was the View, familiar territory. Then Joy shifted. She leaned forward a fraction, quiet but focused. Meghan, you have recently criticized Democratic leaders for talking about police reform, yet not delivering. You said actions matter more than words. Couldn't you see how that sounded diluted coming from someone who still casts a vote for GOP candidates? Meghan paused. She offered a steady response. I'm not against reform. I support accountability. But I also can't support rhetoric that inflames unrest when it's not followed by concrete plans. Words without plans leave people frustrated. Joy's smile remained, but it felt tighter now. Some would say your frustration is tied to your personal discomfort. Are you comfortable seeing protests turned into vandalism? Meghan replied compassionately. I see pain, real, valid pain. And I see disruption. I also see people getting hurt. We need empathy alongside strategy. Pairs of microphones crossed the table. Sunny nodded. Everyone agrees on empathy. But from your critics, they say reformers are tired of talking about empathy. They want real policy change. If rhetoric without change isn't enough, what specifically would you support? Meghan answered, independent oversight on police, community-led safety boards, federal funding for body cams, real comfort, not just words. Joy's tone shifted further. You justify that. But your comments went so far as to suggest that activists can't be trusted. You said some are performing outrage. Doesn't that undermine legitimate voices? Meghan's composure held. She stated clearly, sure, some may use outrage as performance, but most are sincere. I honor that. My question was about credibility. If we lose trust in the messenger, how do we fix the message? Joy narrowed her gaze. Or maybe the message is fine, and the problem is we keep hearing it from people who don't suffer the policies they critique. Something hung in the pause that followed. Meghan said, that anger is real. But if the messenger loses credibility, the message fades too quickly. Joy answered sharply, raising her voice just a notch. So you don't think people you disagree with deserve your benefit of the doubt? Meghan replied, voice steady. I think we owe everyone civility and clarity. We have to believe in each other, but also require accountability. Joy shook her head slightly. That's not what you tweeted. You attacked individuals. You called them performative. That's ad hominem, Meghan. Meghan met her gaze. I challenge behavior, yes. If someone stands on a soapbox and doesn't follow through, I'll call it out. I stand with causes, not cliches. The audience shifted. You could feel the burn starting. Whoopi stepped in. Let's pivot slightly. Say you were a protester watching leaders speak without action. What would you want to hear from Meghan McCain? Meghan paused. She said calmly, I'd want to hear specific timelines, dates, accountability measures. I'd want the promise of justice anchored in policy, not just pain. Joy scoffed quietly and said, so if they don't do it, you walk away? Meghan replied, I'll hold them to it. I won't walk away from solving problems, but I'll walk away from empty slogans. Joy leaned forward, tone edged. That sounds like you're saying protesters don't deserve continued attention unless they check your boxes. Meghan answered, If the boxes are what restores safety and justice, I believe they do deserve that attention. Joy's expression hardened. She said, "So if they don't deliver your vision, you'll say they lied?" Megan said clearly, "I'll say they promised something they didn't deliver." That was the shift. The one-word lines. The tightened eyes. The burn quietly rising. Joy studied her. The host leaned forward. The audience didn't clap this time. Whoopi broke the tension with her voice. "All right. We'll hear much more after the break." And the audience remained silent as the screen faded. Only the echo of their challenge remained. The show returned, and the room felt smaller. No music played. The energy had changed. Meghan McCain sat composed, her hands folded in her lap. Joy Behar crossed her arms, glare lingering in her expression. The audience was silent, leaning in, caught in the weight of the moment. Whoopi leaned forward, voice calm but firm. She said, "Meghan, let's dig deeper. You asked for real accountability. But when people say you've set an impossibly high bar, you shot back that you're asking only for basic follow-through." Meghan nodded lightly. She said, "People deserve more than promises. If we simplify reform into slogans, nothing changes, and people lose hope." Sarah Haynes spoke up, voice gentle. She said, "Are you suggesting that calling out empty rhetoric is more important than supporting the overall mission?" Meghan answered, with steady conviction. She said, "I'm saying that both matter, but a mission without trust is brittle. We can't build justice on a foundation of doubt." The camera lingered on Joy. She said quietly, "Then why did you tweet that their whole movement was built on lies? That not everyone's pain is genuine?" Meghan took a slow breath. She said, "Because honesty matters. Pain is real. But if we frame every struggle as a universal failure of the system, we miss policy nuance." I wanted clarity. Joy narrowed her gaze. She said, "Nuance? Or control?" Sometimes nuance is just a polite way to silence anger. Meghan's eyes softened but remained firm. She said, "Anger is real, but it's not strategy. It's a voice, an important voice, but not the only one." Joy's voice edged harder. "Strategy? That sounds like gatekeeping. Like you're setting terms on who gets to speak." Meghan replied, "I'm setting terms on effectiveness. Who gets to speak matters less than what we do after we speak." The tension hovered again, sharper this time. You could sense it building momentum. Sunny Hostin spoke cautiously. She said, "Meghan, let's shift to results. When you say some leaders lied, did you endorse the efforts of those who didn't? Or are you saying accusing them was wrong?" Meghan paused, then said quietly, "If I accused someone of lying, I expected proof. If proof wasn't there, I'd apologize. But if it kept happening, I'd demand accountability." The audience watched her chin lift, her posture calm. She wasn't straining. She was steady. Joy folded her arms. She said slowly, "Some say you're using this moment to score political points, that you're piling on because it's convenient." Meghan met her eyes. She said, "I'm not afraid to hold everyone, both left and right, to a standard of action. If that looks like point scoring, I'll wear the label." Joy leaned forward, lips pressed. She said, "You're calling them liars. That's harsh." Meghan's voice didn't tremble. She said, "Liars who promise reforms they never intend to deliver are complicit. And people deserve to know who is and who isn't." Joy looked down for a moment, then back up. She said, "Don't you think that language shuts down dialogue? That calling someone a liar ends conversation?" Meghan answered clearly, "Not when it points to betrayal. Dialogue begins with honesty. You can't talk about justice if you're starting from a lie." The microphone captured the stillness. Joy took a breath. She said, "So you don't believe in second chances? You don't believe forgiveness?" Meghan shook her head gently. She said, "I believe in accountability and growth. Forgiveness comes with change, not before." The audience absorbed the exchange. They didn't clap, but you could almost hear their hearts beating louder. Whoopi spoke quietly. "This feels intense. Let's hit pause and come back with a fresh lens." The screen cut to black without closure. No applause. Just unresolved energy pulsing in silence. The cameras came back on, and the atmosphere had shifted again. Meghan McCain sat upright, composed but resolute. Joy Behar's eyes were firm, The possibility of collapse had shifted into full confrontation. The rest of the panel, Whoopi, Sarah, Sunny, watched with guarded anticipation. Whoopi spoke first, voice steady. "Megan, this moment tonight feels like more than words on Twitter. We should ask, what do you hope comes next after calling someone a liar?" Megan folded her hands in front of her and said calmly, "I hope accountability comes next. If one calls for reform, there must be follow-through. I don't want disruption without direction." Joy's jaw tightened as she leaned closer, lowering her tone. "You demanded follow-through, then attacked voices leading the charge. Is it reform you want, or control?" Megan locked eyes with her. She said steadily, "I want both honesty and impact. If we let empty words stand, we've lost both." Sarah chimed in gently. "Joy, do you think Megan is right that some messages were empty?" Joy shook her head slowly and glared at Megan. "Not entirely. But Megan, you're missing the point. Sometimes pain is so urgent that people speak before they have all the solutions." Megan didn't waver. She said, "I agree pain is urgent, but urgency without clarity is risk. We must channel pain, not just feel it." Joy's tone turned flat. "So you value clarity over courage?" Megan paused, then said softly, "I value both. Courage that isn't built on truth is just noise. Clarity without courage is too quiet." Joy scoffed. "That sounds like you're saying activists should hold themselves to your standards." Megan replied gently, "I'm asking that every voice be held to its own values. If someone fights for justice, I'm right there. But empty language? Then I'm skeptical, because skepticism is how you root out hypocrisy." Joy stared at her, eyes hard. "You call them liars. Why shouldn't people call you a liar for calling someone else a liar?" Megan's voice didn't falter. "If I lied, yes. But I don't fear the label because I believe in my words. And when leaders lie, they earn the title." The silence in that moment was tangible. The audience leaned forward again. Sunny Hostin spoke up with measured calm. "This is all very real. Megan, do you think Joy Behar is lying?" Megan swallowed, looked directly at Joy, and said, "No. I think sometimes everything we want to be real comes from genuine pain. But in those moments, the language we choose matters. Honest criticism is not a lie. It's leverage for change." Joy closed her eyes and shook her head. She said, "That doesn't answer. You're attacking them for their own pain." Megan took a gentle breath. She said, "No. I'm asking them to lead pain into purpose." Sarah Haynes interjected softly. "What if people watching feel this is cruel? That Megan is attacking the pain, not the performance." Megan met the concern calmly. "Then I'll say it again. I'm attacking empty performance, not pain. Pain deserves respect. Performance demands transparency." Joy's expression faltered for the first time. She said quietly, "Megan, you called us liars." "That's harsh." Megan replied quietly. "I called empty words what they were. And when they come from platforms like this one, they deserve to be examined." Joy returned her gaze firmly. "So we examine. Does that mean we stop talking?" Megan answered with conviction, "No. It means we talk with responsibility." Joy let the words hang before asking, "And if someone doesn't meet your standard?" Megan paused, then said gently, "Then they must answer. That is respect." A long silence followed. Whoopi stood quietly. She said, "Thank you both. This was raw. This was necessary. No applause. No relief. Just the weight of conversation." The show ended with the camera lingering on Megan and Joy in their stillness, two women who had touched a fault line. The screen faded slow.